Welcome everyone, Bjorn Scottcat here, and today we're advancing to the second of our startlingly simple guides. Moving on from Shogun, our next guide for the Total War series is Medieval. Now this game brought with it a myriad of new mechanics and some genuine distinctions between factions, each of which will take time and skill for a player to master. Today though, we're just going to keep things simple. Key thing to remember when going to higher difficulties is the effect this will have on the AI. The AI will not change its tactics. However, there are buffs and debuffs that will affect how battles work, and more importantly on the campaign, how the diplomacy and view towards you can be changed. Typically on Expert, the AI will seem more aggressive, attacking the player and seemingly teaming up against you. This is because there will be penalties applied to your diplomacy. So bear that in mind when going into Expert, that you will have less control over the wars you fight as the AI turns against you. The Vikings campaign is an expansion pack to the original medieval Total War. This campaign actually has some new mechanics of its own and functions in a way slightly different to the grand campaign we'll be looking at. Going into the Vikings campaign, you should really start as the Danes if you want to see how the game works, as they are far easier than most of the other factions and will give you a good grasp of how the map works and where to expand from. So for this guide, we'll be focusing on the grand campaign as shown here. As such, you will have two choices when you begin your campaign: Conquest or Glory. Conquest will see you expanding your realm to 60% of all regions for a minor victory and 100% for a total victory, whereas Glory will have you completing a variety of objectives to gain points in order to win. Victory through glorious achievements tends to be more of a thematic and structured campaign, though you will have less control over what you're doing, and so it can at times be a lot harder. Whereas Domination simply leaves you in the sandbox to complete the game how you see fit. Atop this, you will get to choose the start date of your campaign, and this will make a large difference for you and your playthrough, with the start dates affecting not only factions present, but empire size, location, turns for completion, atop the effect of later years already having had certain world events occurred, meaning different units will be available earlier or withheld from players of the high and late periods. For your first playthrough, I'd recommend starting in the low medieval period as part of a conquest campaign, as not only will you be able to explore and learn about all the units and world events as they occur, but also you will have far more control of your empire and how it expands. This will allow you to put yourself in a far stronger position by the high periods and ultimately be better prepared for the endgame. In Medieval, you are quite frankly spoiled for choice in regards to factions. Each faction will have its own advantages and disadvantages, though we can simplify this by dividing them via religion. As religion takes such a large role in this game, with entire mechanics and units dedicated to it, when deciding your faction, I'd recommend considering their religion first, followed by their starting location, as this too will affect what units and resources you have immediate access to, thanks to regional resources, units, and structures. There are three main religions within medieval Total War: Catholic, Muslim, and Orthodox. Catholic nations will have to deal with the Pope, keeping them happy, being granted access to Crusades and diplomacy benefits in the process. By and large, Catholic factions will have the broader range of heavily armored melee combatants. From men-at-arms to knights, Catholic nations can both form a line and devastate on the charge. Muslims will have access to Jihads, acting in much the same way as Catholic Crusades, though taking a more reclamation or revenge-based method to their completion. Muslim roster does contain some praiseworthy heavy infantry, though it is their faster moving and skirmish-based units that truly set them out. Their skirmish cavalry is some of the best in the game and can be recruited extremely early on. This will form the backbone of your armies for much of your campaign. Orthodox factions do not have access to the Crusade or Jihad mechanics, and also have no religious figure to contend with, and cover some incredibly powerful factions. On your first playthrough though, I cannot recommend them, as dealing with the religious unrest and diplomacy is much harder and will take time and experience to be able to better manage. The key thing to note when selecting your faction is to look at the faction difficulty rating. The Total War franchise has always had a system of difficulty you can choose from at the very beginning, it also acknowledges the fact that different factions and their starting positions will have a great effect on how hard or easy it will be to continue the campaign. Factions such as the Almohad start off with few enemies and in a strong position to develop an economy. Factions such as the Aragonese start surrounded by potential enemies and with minimum chance to develop their economy. As such, the Aragonese are rated hard, whereas the Almohads are rated easy. Keep this in mind when selecting your faction and your difficulty, and try to find a nice middle ground between the two. First thing to know are our various panels for the UI. First off, we have our military panel, describing all the different soldiers and admirals at our disposal. You'll notice here we do have dons and doges. This is their title, and that's something you'll be able to affect as we continue. Aside from the name of the general, we also have their current province and region on the left, as well as the total number of soldiers under their command and the rank of the general in charge of them. Moving on to our diplomacy tab, we can see the current allies and enemies of each faction in turn. At the beginning of the game, everyone is neutral. It's up to you to send forth your diplomats and engage in diplomacy with the enemy to secure alliances, trade, and potentially engage in war. The economy tab will provide a nice breakdown of all the regions you are currently within. This is to say not only regions you control, but also the seas within which your units are stationed. This applies to the expenses. Every soldier in your army will be paid an upkeep cost. The total upkeep cost of the army within a province or naval region will be shown in your expenses tab. You also have the income of all your regions shown here, and most importantly, the loyalty of each region under your control. Try to ensure this is always above 100, though preferably greater than that. A quick way to check is to hold Shift on your keyboard. As long as your regions are green, you have no worries about rebellion. Should they turn yellow, you have to move in troops or agents to help control the populace or lower your taxation. If it hits red, expect rebellions, and as such your armies to quell the populace. The Subterfuge tab will contain all information of agents currently under your control. At the very beginning, Venice has an emissary and a princess, as we can see here on the map. The value is their experience and capability in conducting missions. Now do bear in mind, when you move a unit, this is not considered to have moved until you've hit end turn. As such, the location remains as Venice. However, if you lose track of your agents, a quick way to find them is to click on their name, which will automatically select them and bring the map towards them. The heirs tab is extremely important. Within this, you will see all available heirs currently within your kingdom. We have a princess, Angela, featured here, who is available and currently of wedding age. As such, you will want to wed her so as to gain more heirs to protect your dynasty. We have 3 princes, though they are underage. This means they will not be able to take command of any of your forces. Eventually, when Prince Vitali comes of age, when you recruit a unit, he will automatically join it. And upon the death of your king, he will take control of the family, changing his unit into the appropriate general unit of the period you're in. Currently for us, we have Royal Knights as our general's bodyguard. But this will change as time goes by and better units become available. Final tab to note is your provincial tab. Simply right-click on a province to get this information. We can see here in Genoa, our income is 180, we have no resources, though we do have silk as a tradable good. The more tradable goods you have, the more money you can potentially earn from them. As such, setting up docks and trade posts will allow you to begin trading with other empires and increasing your income significantly. Whereas if we look at Tuscany, we do have wool as a tradable resource, but we also have iron deposits, thus making this an excellent region to take, and as can be seen, a significant earner as well. Finally, from the top, we have our income and our governor. Income is pure and simply the amount of money you are earning from this region. Your governor is decided by using provincial titles. We take a look at Don Romano Landolfi. He has high piety, a reasonable loyalty, and poor acumen. By giving him a title, we have increased his loyalty. We've also appointed him governor, Lord Landolfi. If we take another look at our generals, we can now see Lord Landolfi. His title has been changed on all applicable parchments. Our next set of information comes in the form of taxation, loyalty, and zeal. Our taxation can be easily changed by using these arrows. As you'll notice, our income is increasing and our loyalty is decreasing. My recommendation is to keep above 110% for your loyalty at all times. This will ensure your populace is happy, even if your earnings are slightly stilted. Though don't feel this is necessary, and by and large you can leave your taxation on normal throughout the game, adjusting it as and when rebellion becomes an issue. Your zeal is most important when using mechanics such as the Crusades and Jihads. A region with higher zeal will produce more soldiers, and more soldiers will join Crusades passing through them. Of course, this also means if you pass through allied or neutral territories, you can look at their zeal to see how many soldiers you will gain. Atop zeal, we also have information on religion. This is extremely important as you will need to ensure that the religion is predominantly your own. You can use agents and lords to improve this to help increase religion quickly so as to ensure your loyalty remains solid. The last thing to note is something special to each region. Tuscany, for example, historically was famed for urban militia, and thus you get a +1 valor bonus for recruiting urban militia within this region. Whereas if we go to Genoa, this is famous for Genoese sailors, and thus you get +1 valor for them. However, if we go to Milan, there is no historical information and thus no bonus within this region. Do check them early on and as you go to see which units you should be recruiting within each region, and getting you most you can out of their natural potential. Your generals, appointed lords, and of course your king will have a mixture of characteristics that will play a large role in how you use each one, with the potential for historical named characters to appear atop this, providing higher skill levels from the start for those characteristics that better reflect their historic importance. Acumen assists your economy. For areas with good loyalty and away from the front line, this can be a great fit and should be a key thing to look at for titles such as Chancellor of the Exchequer. Piety helps with conversion and keeping the populace zealous and loyal to your empire. This is great for converting new regions you gain from a different religion. Dread instills fear and helps control a rowdy region. Use this when first claiming a region, particularly ones likely to revolt, or even when finishing a faction, to help prevent their reappearance. Loyalty is incredibly important to prevent armies from being bought by the enemy or engaging in civil war against you. Keep your generals loyal and watch out for any disloyalty, particularly from generals of large armies, separating them quickly to prevent sudden threats from behind the front lines. Command is simply a measure of how good your general is in combat. This will go up naturally over time as you fight more and more with them, though it should be noted it will have a large effect on auto-resolve. Having an extremely good commander is a great way to quickly gain new regions through auto-resolving the AI to death. You can also see here from our king that this character is married and is of royal blood, whereas if we click on John Gerardo Savilli, we have no such images associated with this character. The prior characteristics can all be affected by a mechanic known as vices and virtues. These will be gained throughout your campaign. They vary from corruption-based traits, which come from remaining in prosperous lands for too long without doing anything. Construction, by remaining where construction takes place, and religious, by taking part in crusades or jihads to name but a few. The sheer quantity of vices and virtues available is staggering, and it will take many playthroughs to see them all, and further to learn how to maximize their gain. To keep things simple though, dread and loyalty are your most important characteristics. Use dread to maintain the loyalty of your empire and leave low loyalty generals outside of your main force to prevent their turning being an issue. Keep your generals moving and winning battles, and you'll be gaining more virtues for more characters than you can keep up with in no time. The seas are a great new addition for players, promoting both military strategy and trade in their inclusion. Take some time to look about the map early on, and always keep an eye out for ships and the routes they create. Naval regions work in the same way as those on land, with the addition that certain ships are required to venture into deeper waters. Each region must be connected to gain advantage from them, with at least one ship in each and no enemy fleets present to contest the waters. Watch out for these sea routes, moving from region to region ship by ship, for both your own expansion and potential maritime incursions from the enemy. Economy works much the same as it did in Shogun. with farming and mining being the bulk of your consistent income, but with a great deal more potential placed on trade. Farming can be improved by upgrading your farmland. This will increase in 20% increments for each consecutive upgrade. Bear in mind the return on higher levels of upgrade are diminished, meaning sometimes paying to upgrade them isn't actually worth the investment. Instead, that money could be better used in expanding your empire and getting some lower upgrades on new regions. Mines apply a static income to your economy. Once more, as you upgrade your mines, you will start to see diminished returns from their cost. As such, you should definitely build them, but don't be in a hurry to go much beyond a complex. Ports are your main means of trade. By building ports and trade houses along the coastline and connecting all of these with your ships, you will be able to potentially earn a significant sum of money. The problem with this method, though, is that by entering into wars, seas can be contested, and thus your trade routes can be held to ransom. Using trade in times of peace is a great way to earn good money, but try not to be overly reliant on it, as it can lead to sudden drops in finance and potentially game-ending bankruptcy. Focus your main finances on being from land, upgrading farmlands and mines to provide a steady income for your empire, and then using the additional trade income during times of peace to further this economic development and supplement short-term military investment from things such as mercenaries. Military structures, by and large, follow an upgrade path of maker, workshop, guild, and finally master. As with Shogun, each upgrade will provide either access to new higher tier units or the recruitment of superior lower tier ones, with an increased valor afforded them at each successive construction tier. Owing to the increased roster available, there are now more occasions where you will need multiple structures in a single region to recruit specific units. Ensure to always read through building descriptions to see what units can be produced by each structure, and their subsequent requirements for recruitment. Note here in training facilities the word alone. This means the spearmaker without anything else will allow us to recruit spearmen. Whereas looking at the spearworker's workshop alone, we had the production of feudal sergeants, you would need a horse breeder so as to produce mounted sergeants. Keep an eye on all of these as you go, as there are also times you will need structures such as armorers in order to build new units. Knowing unit requirements will allow you to better specialize your regions and expedite their military production via early strategic construction. Though this will only affect higher tier players, and at the beginning I wouldn't worry about it. Simply view your first campaign as a learning experience, where you can experiment with construction and units to figure out what works best for you, before then developing a more efficient strategy later on. For example, over here in Venice, get our increase to galleys. This will be where we produce our naval fleets. Tuscany will specialize in the recruitment of spears, whereas Genoa could specialize in the recruitment of swords. Obviously, you will be able to recruit multiple things from each region, but having that specialized decision early can really save you some money, so you're not creating the same structures in every region. This is something you should be thinking about, but not really worrying about. Eventually, you will know which armies work best for you, and you'll be able to streamline your construction to better suit it. A great addition and prominent source of power in medieval was the introduction of mercenaries and the Crusade/Jihad mechanics. Inns are a solitary structure without upgrade and provide access to mercenaries. Mercenaries are expensive to recruit and maintain, but are recruited instantly, allowing you to amass a large force quickly. However, their expense will take its toll on your economy. Alongside the inability to replenish or upgrade them, see their effectiveness quickly dwindle as both your technology develops and the units themselves are weakened in combat. As a short-term solution, mercenaries provide a great means of engaging in blitzkrieg tactics and bolstering defenses. In regards to long-term campaigns and protracted engagements, try to rely more upon your own military potential, as it will help you more in the long run. Religious structures now play a far more important part and will mix between military and subterfuge recruitment, based on faction and situation. Assuming you have stuck with a Muslim or Catholic nation, then religious structures will give you access to Jihads and Crusades respectively. Recruited similar to units and agents, these entities must be placed after recruitment upon a target region to activate them. Once activated, they will spawn units in accordance with the zeal of the local population, with more zealous regions spawning a larger army. This army can then be joined by your pre-existing units and generals, though they must be used to take their appointed region and will grant bonuses in accordance with their completion. Constructing buildings and further recruiting Jihads/Crusades is not only a great way to improve your zealous state and gain religious virtues for generals placed within them, but will also give you access to cheap, high-tier units instantly. Try to build Crusades and Jihads near to where you will aim them, and ensure you claim the region with them quickly for maximum return on their investment. Regardless of your religion, the creation of religious structures is incredibly important for maintaining the happiness of your population and converting the regions you have conquered. By recruiting Catholic and Orthodox priests or Islamic imams, you will be able to better placate your newly conquered subjects and convert them quickly to allow your armies to continue their advance. As an added bonus to Catholic nations, you'll also gain access to inquisitors through this chain of structures. These religious assassins are an excellent addition to the game, allowing you to attempt to assassinate enemy characters of the same religion without fear of your agent dying should they fail, or reprisals from their attempts. Be careful not to leave them in your own territory though, lest they begin to lay their judgment upon your own population. Spies will become a primary means by which you control your population, prepare for battle against the enemy, and even should you wish, cause rebellion and strife in your enemy's realm. Try to keep a healthy supply of these agents throughout your empire, and dispersed within the enemies. Do keep in mind that unlike in Shogun, their effects do not stack. So one per region is all you will need, and all you will ever gain from. Assassins will become a far greater threat in medieval, with the introduction of governors, vices, virtues, and titles, but to name a few new mechanics tied to each character. Your generals have never been more important. This of course also means neither have the enemies. Using assassins to take out problematic generals and agents can have a huge impact, not only on a battle's outcome, but also on the state of a faction's empire. Without their dreaded hand, a region could turn to riot. Without their zealous presence, the population may yet lose their faith. Setting your assassins to eliminate high-priority targets, then combining them with your other agents, such as spies and priests, can destabilize the enemy position, softening the target and making your conquest far easier in the process. Try to experiment with and learn how these mechanics interact as you go to ease your campaign and broaden your skill base. There are no useless agents in this game, so never feel like it's a bad idea to simply pick one up and try them out. Diplomats are necessary for bribing enemy armies. This can be done by placing them on top of whatever enemy you find. You can also use them to propose alliances with countries you meet, allowing you to gain trade income from your connection. Princesses can be married off to improve diplomatic relations, as well as increase the amount of heirs available to you and thus continue your legacy, or in terms of the game, to continue your campaign, as should your entire family be wiped out, you will lose, so always make sure to have some heirs when available. Spies will let you see the enemy position and how they've composed their army. Assassins let you deal with enemy generals and agents, easing your movement. I would recommend you use all of these whenever possible. As I said, there's never a bad one to select, so early on aim to get them into your empire and figure out how you can best use them, as each player will use them differently. With the increase in scale, empire management has grown substantially in importance. The use of agents, structures, generals, and cheap policing forces will be a necessity to ensure you maintain control of each and every region in your command. Once more, holding shift will be your best friend when considering how each region is going. Now though, you will have to think long and hard about your king's position, keeping them central and all regions connected to ensure you have no sudden drops in loyalty, as his influence is key to placating the population. As you move overseas, try to keep multiple routes available throughout the extent of your realm. This will ensure the king's influence is maintained even should one or two of these routes be contested. With a king placed in good stead, next you should look towards watchtowers. These structures grant a bonus to public order and remove the threat of enemy agents agitating your population. It should be noted that agent spam is a common tactic employed by the AI, particularly in the late game. By having plenty of defenses built early on, you will make the endgame far easier by being able to detect and deal with enemy incursions via subterfuge. Try to combine watchtowers with agents of your own at your frontiers. This will give you the best chance of apprehending anyone who tries to slip by your perimeter. The earliest construction options for troublesome regions are religious buildings, taverns, brothels, and watchtowers. All of these will grant bonuses for their loyalty, atop their own provisions of recruitment and intelligence gain respectively. The final aspect to consider is the religious fervor of your people. Constructing religious buildings and recruiting these agents can help to spread your religion within both your own land and the enemy's. By converting the land prior to its invasion, you can not only help maintain your public order, but also ease the transition of your conquest in general. With all of the above, a player can combine the use of titles to propel lords with complementary traits to assist the situation. If religion is causing unrest, aim for a lord with high piety to aid conversion. If they're newly conquered, choose one with high dread to dissuade resistance. With the increase in units available, army composition will play a leading role in how you engage in combat. This works for both how you construct your forces and that of the enemy you are facing. Aim for counters where you can, using spies to identify threats and plan your armies accordingly. Though as a general rule of thumb, when venturing towards the south and east, bring spears to hold off their cav. When advancing on the west, bring armor-piercing units to slice through their knights. And when you're ready to meet the Golden Horde, bring every soldier you can muster to hold off their assault, preferably in a highly fortified position or on a bridge. On that note, field combat, bridges, high ground and forests show a return to form in medieval, requiring much the same considerations as before. It is in sieges though that you will need to rethink your strategies, and possibly even your armies themselves. At lower tiers, fortified structures can be breached without much trouble, with standard units being able to effectively make their way through walls and gates. For higher tier fortifications, found throughout the late game, you will need to bring the proper tools for the job. Catapult, trebuchet and cannon will be your foremost means of ingress, shattering defenses and exposing the enemy position to your armies. That takes us to the end of our guide, and I hope you find this useful come to make your first attempt at completing Medieval Total War. If you feel that I miss anything in this guide, please do highlight it in the comment section. I hope this information will help you in your campaigns. I wish you good luck. Until next time, as always, lords and ladies, peace out.